In July 2026, Russian forces suffered their highest casualty rate of the entire war, losing over 42,860 soldiers in a single month. Yet, for all that blood, Moscow gained only 37 square kilometers of territory, an area smaller than Manhattan. 2.5 months into what the Kremlin dubbed its Spring-Summer 2026 offensive, the Russian military machine is grinding to a halt. The offensive has failed to make any operationally significant gains. And in a desperate attempt to disguise this failure, the Kremlin has launched a cognitive warfare campaign, pumping out exaggerated claims of battlefield success, while the reality tells a very different story. But it's not just on the ground where Russia is struggling. In a dramatic escalation of the air war, Ukraine has taken the fight deep into Russian territory, targeting economic infrastructure, oil refineries, and even warehouses belonging to the country's largest online retailer. The war is entering a new phase, one where the front line is no longer just in eastern Ukraine, but across the entire breadth of Russia itself. Let's start with the numbers, because they paint a devastating picture of the cost of Putin's ambition. According to the Ukrainian General Staff, Russian forces sustained 42,860 casualties in July 2026. This is the highest monthly total since the war began in 2022, surpassing all previous records and signaling a trend of accelerating losses. To put this in perspective, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stated on July 31st that Russian forces have suffered nearly 700,000 killed in action and about 1.6 million total casualties since the invasion began. But numbers alone don't tell the full story. The Institute for the Study of War, or ISW, one of the most respected think tanks tracking this conflict, has crunched the data and found something startling. Russia's monthly rate of advance in 2026 is dramatically lower than the same period in 2025. In July 2025, Russian forces seized 455 square kilometers. In July 2026, they seized only 37.85 square kilometers, a nearly 92% drop. This means that for every square kilometer of territory Russian forces captured or infiltrated in July 2026, they suffered approximately 353 casualties. And if you look only at territory actually seized, not just infiltrated, the figure is even more staggering: over 1,100 casualties per square kilometer. Even the Kremlin's own claims fail to hide the reality. Moscow's official narrative boasts of capturing settlements and breaking through Ukrainian lines, but even their inflated figures show a rate of advance that is only about foot pace, a rate far too slow to achieve the Kremlin's reported objectives of seizing key areas by the end of 2026. So why is Russia, with its immense size and resources, struggling so badly? The answer lies in a combination of factors: Ukraine's drone dominance, air defense shortages, and Russia's inability to sustain modern warfare. First, the drone war. Ukrainian forces have embraced what military analysts call network-centric warfare, a real-time connection between commanders, soldiers, and weaponry that achieves faster command speed and combat advantage. Ukraine has leveraged this to devastating effect. Ukrainian drones, including kamikaze drones and AI-guided systems, have turned the battlefield into a transparent killing field. One Ukrainian drone unit commander told Al Jazeera that he receives streams from 20 to 30 drones at once, allowing his forces to spot and strike Russian positions with surgical precision. The impact goes beyond the front lines. Ukraine has used drones to strike deep inside Russia, targeting oil refineries, military airfields, and economic infrastructure. These aren't just symbolic attacks. They are degrading Russia's ability to wage war. On August 1st alone, Ukrainian drones struck a Wildberries warehouse in the Samara region, about 500 miles from Ukrainian positions. They also hit a residential building in Engels, home to a military airbase, and an oil refinery in Saratov. Russian officials admitted that 635 Ukrainian drones were intercepted or destroyed that night, but many got through. At least 8 people were killed in these strikes, according to regional officials. Meanwhile, Russian forces are exploiting a critical weakness in Ukraine's defenses: a shortage of Patriot interceptor missiles. On the night of July 31st to August 1st, Russia launched one of its largest missile barrages of the war, firing 35 missiles and 185 drones at Ukrainian targets. The primary target was Kyiv. The attack killed 9 people in the capital and injured 33, including 4 children. It damaged 18 residential buildings, a school, and even the Lithuanian embassy. But here's the critical detail. The Ukrainian Air Force reported that Russia fired 27 ballistic missiles, including Iskander-M and S-400 systems. Ukraine's air defenses intercepted or suppressed only one of them. President Zelensky attributed this failure to the shortage of Patriot interceptors, stating bluntly that Ukraine simply doesn't have enough to stop ballistic missiles. Russia knows this and is deliberately maximizing its ballistic missile strikes to overwhelm Ukrainian defenses. In July 2026, Russia launched at least 376 missiles against Ukraine, the highest monthly total since the start of the war. This is nearly 90 more missiles than the previous high in February 2026. Russia is burning through its stockpiles at an alarming rate, using refurbished S-400 systems and Zircon missiles to compensate for shortfalls in production. Russia produces only about 60 Iskander-M ballistic missiles and 40 S-400 missiles per month, far less than what it is firing. By tapping into its older stockpiles, Moscow is mortgaging its future military capability for short-term gains that aren't materializing. The battlefield losses aren't just military problems. They are social and economic ones, too. Russia's recruitment efforts are struggling to keep pace with casualties. According to Ukraine's Foreign Intelligence Service, the Russian Ministry of Defense had recruited only about 195,000 contract soldiers by early July 2026, less than half of its annual target of 409,000 personnel. The recruitment rate has slowed from 1,200 people per day in 2024 to roughly 1,090 per day in mid-2026. To make up the shortfall, Russia is relaxing medical and administrative requirements for new recruits and increasingly turning to students, foreign nationals, and residents of Russian-occupied Ukrainian territories. This is a sign of desperation, not strength. The economic picture is equally grim. Since July 18th, Ukraine has struck more than a dozen Wildberries depots, Russia's answer to Amazon. These strikes are aimed at disrupting the consumer economy and creating financial pain for ordinary Russians. A Wildberries warehouse in Elektrostal, just east of Moscow, was hit on July 18th, followed by attacks across western and southern Russia, as well as occupied Crimea. At least 9 people have been killed and scores wounded in these drone strikes on civilian economic infrastructure. Meanwhile, international pressure is mounting. A bipartisan bill championed by the late Senator Lindsey Graham is moving through the U.S. Senate. If passed, it would impose 100% tariffs on the top importers of Russian oil and gas: India, China, and Turkey. The goal is to further isolate Russia from the global economy and stifle its war effort. And in Europe, an EU ban on Russian seaborne coal exports has effectively halted shipments by targeting the insurance and reinsurance markets dominated by EU, UK, and Swiss firms. Russia, one of the world's top 3 coal exporters, is finding it increasingly difficult to ship its products anywhere in the world. The Kremlin's cognitive warfare campaign is trying to convince Russians that the sacrifices are worth it. But even the official narrative can't hide the growing chasm between the Kremlin's claims and battlefield reality. The rate of advance is measured in feet, not miles. Casualties are mounting faster than recruits can be replaced, and the war is reaching deeper into Russian territory than ever before. The core tension of this war is this: Russia is willing to pay an extraordinary price in blood and treasure for incremental, almost meaningless, territorial gains. But Ukraine is proving resilient, adapting with technology and tactics to slow the Russian advance and take the fight to the enemy. Yet the question remains: how long can Russia sustain this grind? And perhaps more importantly, how long will the Russian people accept a war that has brought them record casualties, economic pressure, and now, drone strikes on their own cities? The war is at a crossroads. Neither side can claim decisive victory. But the trajectory is clear. Russia is paying a terrible price for a failed offensive. Subscribe for more geopolitical analysis, and leave a comment below. Do you think Russia can sustain this offensive through the winter? Or is the Kremlin approaching a breaking point? Subscribe and comment below. Do you think Russia can sustain this offensive through the winter? Or is the Kremlin approaching a breaking point?